out here fighting demons. We done stepped into a life that got us out here fiending. That money be the root of all evil, could kill us all. My homie had a bad addiction and died to an overdose of fentanyl. My other homie doing 30, killing with fentanyl. I just make sure I'm by the phone every time he call. Ever so dope, we all make some bad choices. Some of us get a second chance while others pay for it. The money in the drug got these women selling they soul. They done legalized weed, now everybody smoking drugs. People out here getting high, forgetting they got keys. Double cupping all night on that lean getting lit. Pumping that dog food, aka that heroin. Another mother just lost a child to something that's embarrassing. We need to make a change and break the cycle, all this foolishness. Every day, every so dope, we keep on losing keys.
Hey everybody, it's Jennifer. Today we are touching a subject it's really sad. We have two mothers here, two grieving mothers. Both of their sons have passed away. One was from a fentanyl poisoning, and another struggled with drug addiction in the past. And they're going to tell us a little bit about what it's like to be grieving somebody and what happened. Cathy.
Hi, this is Cathy McClellan. I'm actually the podcaster person with started Ever So Dope, and one of the reasons that we started Ever So Dope was to go along with the program that we run called the Ever's House. That was actually started 8 years ago, and my son, who has now passed away, was the one who helped us put the business model together, because he had struggled for about 10 years before he passed away with addiction to opiates. He was what I call a functioning addict. He could go to work, have a job, pay his bills, be a decent person, and then have an itch and go get high. And then he would get clean, rehab, detox, and it was a vicious cycle which went on for about 10 years. Kenny Moses was my son's name, and my only son, and I miss him terribly. So we'll be happy to share our experience when it's my turn.
Thank you. All right. We also have Deborah here.
I'm Deborah.
So what happened with your son?
I would say, my personal opinion, this all happened when my son, I think he fell into addiction because of the fact that on his 4th birthday, we had a birthday party. And then that night we were fixing to go out with some friends, and my husband said he didn't feel well. All the symptoms, I felt like it was a heart attack.
Yeah.
Took him to the hospital, misdiagnosed.
How old was he? How old was he?
27.
Oh my gosh.
He's so young.
And so here I am, left my kids asleep with a neighbor. His wife rode with me to the hospital, and for 2 hours, I didn't get to see him or talk to him. To which he wound up dropping dead of a massive heart attack.
And they misdiagnosed it completely. Wow.
Never asked me any questions.
Never.
I had some friends come through the emergency room and said, you need to call your mom and dad. So once my parents got there, they said, we need to speak to you and a family member. So my dad went with me. The doctor questioned me about my husband's background, which I knew nothing of. And once he found out that I really couldn't give him the information he wanted, he said, well, I wish I'd known that before now, because he's gone.
Oh my gosh, how insensitive.
So here's my children in bed.
And they were how old?
2 and 4. So every year from the time Chris was 4, he died when he was 37. Every February, like triggered, You
It was
know,
a triggering month. And so it was your son Chris's birthday, and then the next day,
that night.
That
Well,
night.
he was born on Valentine's Day, but that particular year, we did the party on a Saturday,
Yeah.
and so,
So he didn't have a dad growing up.
Yeah. Do you think that's what started Chris's
I do.
addiction?
yes, he never could understand how that could happen. How do you tell a 4-year-old?
Yeah. There's no explaining that.
I know that through the years, a lot of the boys that grew up with our sons had trouble with addiction or with the law. And like about, I don't know, 15 years ago, I was working with a gentleman who wanted us to write a book. And that was going to be the topic, these boys that didn't have dads. And all of them either were abandoned by their fathers had passed away, or didn't have a father figure, and they need those strong dads in their life. And I know that's where my son got lost. I mean, I have no doubt about it in my mind at all, none at all.
So your stories are different, but very similar in the sense.
They are. They are.
Right.
No father, and they had no one to look up to.
That's
and
correct.
so they were probably trying to find what they were missing through people that weren't able to give it to them.
And see, that's where my dad stepped in,
My dad did too,
and
but he wasn't there all the
we
time.
moved back in with my parents for 9 months, and then I went back home.
Yeah, to the home that you and your husband lived in.
Yes.
That was hard, wasn't it?
It was, you know, I had finally reached a point to move on, try to figure out my life,
Yeah.
how I'm going to take care of my children.
And if you haven't experienced that kind of loss, you have no idea. I have. You have. And then we lost our kids. And so the judgment that goes with folks who struggle with addiction is disgusting to me. And if people would take a moment or two, get educated, ask the right questions, realize that it's going to happen to them or one of their loved ones in one day soon, because it just is. You and I heard today on the phone about the drugs that were coming in the state of Florida from the border, illegal. The fentanyl and that was seized in 2022 that could have taken out the whole state in one arrest. So it's not if, it is when. And the judgment, because that we're bad moms, or we did this, or we didn't do that, you have no idea what you're talking about. And that pisses me off.
Well, and everybody thinks it's not going to happen to them.
Correct.
Oh,
That they're immune to it.
this can't happen to me because I'm this, that,
I go
the
to
other.
church. I go to church, and my son or my daughter's not going to do that. Well, addiction is a mental health disorder, and it's going to happen.
With your son's passing, how has that experience changed your perspective on addiction and mental health?
Which one are you talking
Both
to?
of y'all.
I'll go first. I love to talk. Okay, so for me, I've been around addiction a long time. My first husband committed suicide in addiction.
So you weren't new to this.
Correct. And one of the reasons that I got involved with the Panama City Rescue Mission 15 years ago was I was fighting. My son was still in his teens, and I wanted to prevent him from going down that path. So I worked really hard, taught every day that I was, once a week while I was there, got involved with the board of directors, got certified in addiction counseling, became a family facilitator, all these things that I did. And I did that in the back of my mind. I knew what was coming. I mean, I knew it because I just knew it. And so I didn't know how severe or bad it would be, but realizing that children, adults, young teens or whatever, whenever they start using, they don't wake up on a Saturday morning and go, oh, I'm going to go F up my life today.
Destroy.
That's not,
It's about having fun.
that's
what
correct.
they're
It's not like they're
thinking
thinking past that. And it's not about the knowing, so training your children early and letting them understand and be exposed to things that are, educated.
Topics that are taboo that needs to be discussed.
Correct. But I know that my son had long periods of sobriety. He was the best guy. He was the best guy. And after he died, and the letters and the calls and the things that I get from people about good things my son did for them, that's what I want people to remember. Because they just, I had someone just this past week, oh, he's a crackhead or drug addict or whatever because he took fentanyl. Well, he didn't take fentanyl, he took his Xanax. He didn't know he was taking fentanyl. He had no plans to die on his floor.
No.
But, so the stigma part is, it's still there. People don't think it's going to happen to them, but I know that it's mental health. If you can't handle pressures and stresses and things like that, and you are prone to addiction, you're going to take a drink, you're going to take a pill, or you're going to shoot, be an IV user. So it's, I just want people to be aware and to teach their children early, because like my other kids know that our DNA, in my DNA, my father, who just passed away, was an alcoholic. He hadn't had a drink since I was 17. It had been a while, but he still is an alcoholic. And so I know that about myself. If I am to go and do too much, it's going to be real bad. You'll be seeing my mugshot, because I know. My daughters are the same way. They know it's not, because we have genetic predisposition to that mental health disorder, so we just choose not to.
Deborah, after going through the experience of your son's addiction, did your thoughts of substance use disorder change? Have you always been more on the open-minded side, or were you thinking it could never happen to you or your loved ones?
No, it opened my eyes to a lot of things, and if I'm like Cathy, if my story can help somebody else and save your child, that's my sole purpose. Going back to the addiction, my dad was an alcoholic.
So it runs in your gene pool just as well as Cathy's.
And just so happens, I watched my sister get hit by a car and it killed her instantly.
Oh my goodness.
And my dad has not taken a drink since then.
Oh wow.
He made that promise to God.
I'm so sorry.
And it's just, unless you've been through it, people don't understand. And it's so easy to sit back and tell me, well, you didn't do enough. I did everything I could. He tried to commit suicide twice. And I called Rivendell to try to check him in, and was told I would have to go before a judge and have him Baker acted. But yet, there again, he got a girl pregnant. He became a dad at 14.
Wow.
They got into an argument about a month before his daughter was born. And we came home from church, and there was a big bottle from Sam's of ibuprofen. He had taken half of that bottle. Went in his bedroom, he's doubled over in the floor.
And did you find him?
Yes.
He had to get his stomach pumped.
Yeah. So the girl went into premature labor, so we're at the hospital with both of them.
Both of them. Oh wow.
Wow, and they did not get him help then?
Well, once he just like fell over on the couch.
It took to that point for the system to recognize something was wrong.
Right. When Kenny was going through his, I remember going to Mosley, and there was a teacher, I'm not going to say his name, but my son was extremely bright, just real smart, and there was a lot of politics that went into the things at Mosley, as you well remember. And so, me being me, and my husband at the time, which is my husband, we went up there, and we asked this man, how can you go from A's to F's? Well, he sleeps 3 class all the time. What do you mean he sleeps? He's probably high. He might be hot. Well, how long has this been going on? This entire semester.
You didn't think
Why didn't you call us? And so we kind of went off the chain. I took him out of Mosley at that point, and I put him in Bay High School. And then he went through Bay High School that year, and he did great. But they saw it, and so I was at that point in time, for years, I begged people to get help for him and to get him in, and there was nothing in this town. There was just nothing. And so that was another one of the reasons that I got involved in this was I could see what I've been through, which has been too much. It helps the folks that we help. I mean, because we know what's out there and we know the resources and whatever. So because there was not anybody really willing to step up and do anything back in those days.
Yeah, it was different times.
Yes.
A lot more closed-minded.
Yes.
And,
Like 20 years ago, it was ridiculous.
Yeah. They thought addiction could never touch them, but it's like you say all the time, addiction is just one person over.
It is. It is. That food place, what's it called? One whatever.
One gen away.
Yeah. Well, I believe the addiction is like the homelessness. I believe that it's just right there. I mean, somebody we all know, love, or ourselves, even ourselves.
But back to the thing with Chris, you know, when he fell over on the couch, the nurse was like, well, I ain't got a nurse. And she's like, well, you need to get him to the emergency room. I'm like, how am I supposed to get him there? He's out of it.
Right. How can you literally lift him and
So she
take
got me a wheelchair, and he got Baker acted. He spent a week in Rivendell. They can't, your insurance won't pay longer than a week, whatever.
Yeah.
And
Then
but I mean,
it's just to the door.
it took him. I did not know this, but you can die from that.
Of
It will
course you
shut your
can.
organs down in your body.
Your liver
Yeah.
is toxic for your liver, and I think it takes a long time to get past that as well. I didn't have any of those where Kenny tried to harm himself like that, but I did have where he, you know, I had 3 times I was called that he had overdosed. And one of the times he has actually pulled up in front of a friend's house because that's where he knew he was 19 years old. And he was in a care meeting, and it was Scoop, and I've told you this story. And he was sick as a dog. It was Halloween, and he had gone to a meeting, and somebody had Scoop, and he pulled up in front of Mowat Middle School, and a girlfriend of mine was familiar to him in his car, and she didn't know who he was because it was dark outside, and called the police officers. And so he fell out of the car, and they had to take him to the hospital. He was frothing at the mouth and all of that stuff. And so when I got to the hospital, I said, why is my son? And if you knew my son, he was always bougie. He was always pretty. He always smelled good. His clothes matched. Everything was just so manicured and perfect. And his had dirt up his nose. And I said to the people that were there, why is my son, his face look like that? He was still on a breathing thing. And they said, oh, it was on. He's a big boy. He was on. He was a big boy. He's a big boy, and he was a big boy. But the lady that was in the house, who they didn't know was a friend of mine, said no, he wasn't. He fell out on the ground, and they were rubbing his face in the dirt. And so we were a little disturbed over that. And so at that point in time, then we got him in. We sent him to that place over in Navarre. He spent 30 days or something over there, and we knew that there was a problem. And another time, he almost died, and he was in the Gulf Coast intensive care, and his kidneys started shutting down because of that. He was in the hospital about a week. And another time, I got a phone call from a friend who had left him at a hotel, and this is all over the course of like 10 or 12 years. So he would do that, get sober, be good for a while, and then some kind of like he had a struggle when he died with his ex-wife and the custody of his kids, which turned out to be too much because he loves his kids so much, and she was not being right, and I feel like that was the stressor that was his problem at that time. But once you see your son on a respirator, or fighting to stay alive, or crying because they're so sad and broken, I mean, it completely changes you. But then going through all that 10 or 12 years of what we went through as a family, because we loved each other, all of us, and then to lose him because of fentanyl. It's been 22 months since my son passed away, and Valentine was yesterday. And the big thing that I could remember yesterday was I've gotten yellow roses every Valentine's Day from my son since he was 12. Last year, his best friend brought me a dozen yellow roses because he knew it. And so yesterday was the first time in a long time that I didn't get yellow roses from Kenny. So it's been emotional.
It has.
Yeah.
And I know Valentine's Day is also a very hard day for you. And Valentine's Day was the day that Chris was born. It was his
Born.
birthday. And also right around this time, didn't he pass away close to the date of
He
his
died
birthday?
February the 6th of 2017.
Wow. And so between your husband passing away, your son's birthday, and your son's passing, this is just has to be an emotional month for you just as well as for you.
Well, and now to top it off, my mother died February 23rd of last year.
Oh my goodness.
She had a glioblastoma stage 4 brain tumor that we did not know. Her and my dad both fell.
Mhm.
My dad broke his hip.
They fell. They were
They
at
fell
their
at the
house and
house,
they fell.
at the
Okay.
house. And so now, my dad is in the beginning stages of dementia.
Oh my goodness.
And it's
It's a lot.
it's very difficult. Very, very difficult.
Through all of this, and this is for the both of y'all, have y'all been able to find any moments of peace or healing
No.
in this grief?
No, I'm mad. I've been called bitter, a bitter old woman, an angry old woman. I had a mean client, actually. I run the Evers House, which is a women's recovery residence. That's one of my jobs or one of my businesses. And I had a client that had to be discharged because of her bad behavior. But she sent me an email and told me that's why God was taking people from me, because I was bitter and I was angry and I was a mean person, which I'm far from that. But it is, no, everything, every time you drive by someplace, I was there with my son.
Right.
Every time you go by a restaurant, oh, we ate the dessert that he loved right there. Oh, I sold his truck today. And, oh my God, when he bought the truck, I was with him. You know, it's always that. It's like, I remember the first time and I remember the last time. And it is still so fresh from, I have sought grief counseling a couple of times. And, it's been too fresh. It's still too new. And I don't know how anybody else does it, but when you carry a child for 9 months and you're as close as we were, he was my best friend. I mean, he worked with me. He helped me. And the boy called me every morning at 7 o'clock, every single day of his life. If I needed him, he was there. Even if he was not doing well, he would not ignore or neglect. He was my boy. And all of his friends, they made fun of him in a nice way.
Yeah.
That he was like
A mama's boy.
mama's boy. Everybody.
They both were mama boys.
Everybody knows that. So I don't have peace yet. I don't have any kind of, and I still cry just about every day. And I miss him so much. And I wear his dog tags, and I talk to him all the time. And I just miss him. What about you?
Oh yes. Chris was like that. He would call.
He was a definite.
It may be
mama's
a
boy.
collect call from the Bay County Jail or a prison,
But
which
it was
he
still
went
a phone
to
call.
prison 5 times. But he called.
Yeah. So it's hard. From what I'm gathering, this is, and as a mother, I've never experienced this. I could only imagine, but it seems like there is really no healing from this, is there?
It's like people say, well, how do you do it? I don't have a choice.
Right. You don't have to. You have to. Literally, you just have to do it.
Like now, I'm in another situation. I'm taking on a new role. I'm basically having to care for my father. He's in a
Caregiver.
facility. And I go on the weekends and get him, spend time with him. And it's just really hard, and I don't wish this on anybody.
Well, in closing, is there any, after everything that you've gone through with your son and, I mean, multiple tragedies, what could you tell somebody? What could you tell the audience that could help them in any way?
You have to stay involved through the good and the bad, and a lot of it is not pleasant.
Right.
I've been called numerous times. He's in trouble. When he was a teenager, for 2 weeks, I had no clue where he was, if he's alive, dead, whatever. To get a phone call at 3 o'clock in the morning from it was either Parker or Callaway police. So that they had been sitting there watching him stare at a stop sign for half an hour.
Oh my gosh.
So here he is. Hadn't seen him in 2 weeks. He did have a counselor at the time.
Mm-hmm.
She went to the juvenile justice to visit him. And she called me and said to me, your son's hair has been bleached. So don't be, I'm just letting you know. But it's like, I don't know what I want to say. I did all I could do. I tried to reach out. I tried to get the help.
That's for me too. I would say that stay involved with your children's lives. Be a part of their life, whether it's you're busy or not. I remember a couple, and I will leave the names out, but I remember 2, 3, 4 boys in particular whose parents were too busy having affairs all over town. And they were at my house constantly, like from elementary school up into high school, constantly. And we always said at that point in time when Kenny was like an angel, these boys are going to be lost, or they're going to be lost because they don't have any parental, their parents are too busy with their lives. So I would say, pay attention to your kids. Show up when they're needing you to be there. I did that. My husband did that. We were my parents did that. We were there. We were always involved. We owned our own businesses, so I was always around. I could be room mom at school, and I could coach them in Little League, and I could do all that. We did all that, and it still happened to my son. And what I am grateful for is that I know, beyond a shadow of a doubt, how much my son knew I loved him. He never doubted that. I never gave up on him. I fought for him really, really hard for a very, very, very long time. And the last conversation that I had with him was about one of his best friends' mother had passed. And I was in Alabama, and he was in Panama City. And I called him to tell him, and he goes, oh gosh, Mama, we're going to have to go to that funeral. I said, yes, baby, we're going to have to go to that funeral. And then he said something smart. He was in kind of, him and his girlfriend or fiance were having an argument or something, and he said something smart, and I said, ooh, boy. Well, he hung up the phone. So I sent him a text, and I told him, I said, don't talk to your mama like that. Your mama loves you. And he said, I know. Those were the last words that he said to me. So I would say, make sure your children know that you love them all the time, every day. And I think of the moment that I was told that he had passed away, and it was like when you have somebody that struggles with addiction, that's always what you're worried about. You're getting that phone call.
Right, exactly.
And so I get the phone call, and I hung up. I said, no. I hung up. I just hung up. She called right back, and she was screaming hysterically. Bless her heart. I mean, it was devastating for her. I was to my knees. I don't know. That was it. I just remember saying, he's gone. And the police showed up in Birmingham to try to take me to the hospital because I was hysterical in front of this big place where this big dance convention was that I was at. And so my thoughts went to immediately, was he scared? Did he know what was happening?
Did he suffer?
Yeah. Whatever. And they've told me no, but who knows, but with fentanyl, it's usually instant. And, but I wonder what he was thinking. And I haven't been able to dream about him, and not one time in all this time. And I pray when I go to sleep at night, Lord, just let me see him, because I believe in God, and I believe in heaven, and I know that he's where he's at, and I know he's the face that I'm going to see when I go. I've lost a lot of people, but not anybody that I love as much as I love my son. So I love him still every day, and I will for the rest of my life. So I would say to you, love your kids. Take care of your kids. Believe them when they tell you something's wrong. Don't think you know more, because you probably don't. And be involved in their life. And never, ever, ever give up on them. That doesn't mean enabling their bad behavior. That means being by their side when they have a consequence to their bad behavior. And that's what I would say, because there's not a hurt like losing your child. And my son was 10 pounds and 9.5 ounces when he was born, and he was 19 inches long, so he looked like a bowling ball. And I remember when I saw him the first time in the hospital, and I was a young person. I had my first child when I was 17. I was young, and I remember standing in there looking at that baby in that nursery. That's when they would allow, the babies to stay in the nursery. And I was a little girl then too. I was probably a lot thinner, a lot smaller. And I remember the nurses saying something about, oh my God, look at that baby, because there were 6-pounders in there and 5.5-pounders, and then there's moose, And so I looked at them and I said, "That's my son. That's my son."
How dare you?
I think I'm feisty now. I was really feisty then, and they're like, "You gave birth to that? You had that baby? You have a cesarean?" I said, "No, ma'am. No, that's my son. He came into the world blowing my mind, and he left the world blowing my mind, and I miss him every single day. I don't wish this on anybody." So I would say that love your kids. Love them no matter. Even if they're in the throes of addiction, and even if they've been sent to jail, and even if they go through a divorce, or even if they lose custody of your children, or even any of those things. And he never did lose custody of his children. He had complete custody of his children when he passed away. But at the time that he died, he hadn't seen them in several months because of another situation. We won't go into that. But that's my story. And then my son's name was Kenny Moses, and he was a good man. What's your son's name?
Christopher Allen Nation. And back to the day I was at work and he called and said he wasn't feeling well. He had severe chest pains. So I'm in town. He's at my parents' place up past Bozeman. So I go up there to find him in the bed, rolling just like his dad did the night he died, talking about Elvis sitting on his chest. And I got as far as the intersection at Ohio and 390, and he says, "Mother, pull over, I'm fixing to die."
Oh my God.
So I pulled into the Lincoln Police Department to get help. And of course the EMTs or whatever, paramedics came, tried to give him oxygen because it was dropping, and he couldn't. He told him, he said, "It feels like my head's going to blow off."
Oh my God.
And so, the ambulance finally gets there. He physically gets up and gets out of the truck and walks to the ambulance, and I'm expecting him to tear out. No, there was a long period of time before it ever pulled off.
Really?
So by the time I got to the hospital, he basically was dead.
Oh my God.
And
it was from a massive heart attack?
he has a very hereditary heart disease. He had...
Just like his father.
Right. Both my children have it. He had open heart surgery when he was 24.
Oh, wow.
Had to have triple bypass surgery. When I got to the hospital, the doctor told me all his arteries were 100% blocked.
Oh my gosh.
And he said, there's one thing I can try. I can go in there and try to blow one artery open. And I explained to him, I've known this basically all his life. He had a heart disease. And this was probably going to be inevitable. But when, you know?
It wasn't if, it was when.
Because he kept apologizing. That man sat there and cried with me.
Oh.
And
the doctor did? Wow.
And I said, if you do that, and he's going to be in a vegetable state or not right, don't bother.
Yeah.
He would not want to live his life like that.
Yeah.
And there again, I'm at the hospital by myself.
Oh. But, so he did the surgery and he made it through, and he led a normal life up until, how old was he when he passed away?
37.
36.
36.
He used to be 43 now, right?
He would have been 42 yesterday.
Okay, so now he was like 34, 35, because it's been 7 years.
Wow.
So he'd been 35, yeah.
But, I mean, that whole team in the heart cath were so very compassionate.
Yeah, that's great.
And apologizing and shedding tears. And it's the worst thing that you can ever happen in an...
Ever.
That's my drive in getting involved if I can help somebody else not go through this pain.
Right. If your story could change one life, that's all that matters.
And that's what we hope for, and when you work with women, Deborah's on our board at the Evers House, or the Evers House is a women's recovery residence here in the Florida Panhandle, and we've been open now almost 8 years. And so Deborah's been a huge part of our program as a mentor, as a donor, as a board member. She shows up at everything, and even in all her distress and all of her stuff going on, just like me, I think that's what's kept me alive. I remember after Kenny died, I was on my balcony and I prayed to God to just go ahead and take me, because I'm not doing this. I'd already said I can't live through the loss of a child. I can't do it. I can't do it. I can't do it. And I remember asking God for that peace that He promises us, because I was going to jump. And I live on the 9th floor of a condominium, and I'm like, I'm going. And then I saw the cats down there. I've told this story too. And I thought, no, I won't be attractive when I hit the ground. And then the cats
I'll come get you.
and cats are going to get on me. And okay, I'm going to have to think of another way. But that's how distraught I was more than one time. So I would tell people to just pay attention to their children. If you see the signs, then pay attention and get them some help. Reach out. There are resources.
It seems like turning a blind eye, when there's
not
obvious,
my child.
yeah,
not
when
my
there's
child.
obvious signs,
Right.
and then turning a blind eye, and that's where that open communication should start at a young age.
Right.
Like
they need to see if they start to fail in school, if they start to have emotional outbursts, if they start lying to you, if they start isolating themselves. There's so many things, and a lot of kids are, there's so many things that could go on in a child's life, but drugs will kill them, especially now that fentanyl is in just about every single illicit drug that there is out there. So they think they're taking a Xanax and they're dead, because it's not a Xanax, it's going to be pressed fentanyl.
It's even in marijuana.
Yep.
Well, ladies, I'm sorry that this is the topic we had to cover, and this is why you're here, but I do appreciate you being here.
Well, thank you. Thank you for asking the right questions. We just want to inform and educate and possibly, help other people.